Hey there, I'm going to say a few words about one of my favorite books, Gravity's Rainbow. This is a notoriously challenging or difficult book. It is one of my favorites though, and I esteem it with other very challenging books such as Ulysses by James Joyce, some of Faulkner's books like Sound and the Fury, and Nabokov's Pale Fire. Actually, Pale Fire is a little easier, but and also a few other Pynchon books, Mason and Dixon, Against the Day. These are notoriously difficult books, but I think they're worth it, and I'm going to try and impart to you in this video why that is, why you should read this book, and how you may want to go about it. I struggled with it as well. I think everybody does, and just know that there are ways to find this book a little more accessible, and I'm going to try and give you those tools in this video. So to begin with, I want to start talking about like why would you read this book? After all, aren't there other books out there that are easier to read that you can just pick up and dive into? Yes, obviously that is the case. There are countless books where you can, I call it airport fiction, that are just, you don't need any outside tools to help you. You just read them front to back and then you're done, and you got as much enjoyment as you're probably going to get from that book. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with that, and I think there are authors that I love, such as Raymond Chandler, who I don't know if I'd qualify them quite as airport fiction, but I think of them as pretty easy to read. Like, there's not a lot that is difficult that you can't find. I'm not saying you can't reread Raymond Chandler and find more, you can, but on a first read of The Long Goodbye or The Lady in the Lake, you're going to get the general idea of who the characters are and what happens pretty well. Not so with Ulysses, not so with Gravity's Rainbow. These are books, same with Faulkner. I like to say that they're books that are meant to be reread, not read. And the first time you read them, you're going to have plenty of unanswered questions. You're going to be confused by who people are and what is going on. And that just goes with the territory. But even on your first read, you will find some things to enjoy, and you will get parts of the story. And if you go about it the right way, you can get a lot more than just diving in. So I think that's one of the key ideas with these books, is that you don't want to approach them like a regular book. You want to have as much help beforehand. And if you're a person that doesn't like spoilers, I think with these books you're just going to have to accept that if you want to, unless you want to read it a few times before you get any knowledge of what's going on, just be okay with some spoilers, because these are massive books that there's so much going on that you're going to forget anyways details, and that when you go back that you'll still find some surprises. So back to the part about what I was saying about why you want to read these books. The analogy that I like to use is with ice cream. So as somebody who doesn't eat ice cream very often, you know, I'll eat ice cream maybe once or twice a year. I just don't have the sweet capacity to handle it. But when I do, like, I could eat, you know, chocolate or vanilla or strawberry, or just really basic flavors, and I'll be like, wow, this is amazing, chocolate ice cream. Why don't I eat this more? This is incredible. I'm just blown away, and then I don't eat it for another 6 months. However, if you are a person that eats a lot of ice cream, you know, if you eat chocolate or vanilla night after night, you're going to get really bored of it really fast. And so I think that's the comparison that I'm using with reading. I read a lot, and I don't want to read the same type of books. I like variety. And these books, Gravity's Rainbow, Ulysses, when you read them, it's a totally different experience. A lot of them have annotations because there's so many references to history, to literature, to, you know, the arts in general, to the occult, to all these different things that nobody has a complete handle on. That's why these books are written. Like the annotations for Ulysses I have are longer than Ulysses itself. There's just so many details that Joyce filled the book with that if you really want to know every reference, you need these books. But I should emphasize that, same with Gravity's Rainbow, there are annotations, but you don't need to know every reference to enjoy the book. Those are just like splashes of color to add to the to the texture of the book, but they're not the story of the book. And while I recommend using annotations, they're not the most important part that you need to dive into Gravity's Rainbow or Ulysses. What you need more, I would say, is the general outline of the book, the general context of who these people are, where this is taking place, what's going on. If you have that, then you're going to get a lot more enjoyment out of the book. And then, you read the book a few times, then you're going to want to know, okay, what's that little detail, that movie reference, that music reference, that occult reference, what does that mean? That may be a little more helpful later on, but you don't want that right away. You want that's the the icing on the cake. So that's my analogy for why you want to read this book, ice cream, etc. Now, if you're not a big reader, then I would not recommend starting with Ulysses. You're not going to recommend this to a 6th grader. You're not going to recommend this to somebody who hasn't read a novel in 20 years. This is for the people that love novels, love their forms, have seen all the cliches, and they want to, try something new. So take it or leave it. You don't have to. All right, so I talked about ice cream. I talked about Ulysses and Pale Fire and Faulkner, etc. Now I'm going to talk about the book itself, Gravity's Rainbow. So I'm going to give you a little of the context. It's set during World War II, at the end of World War II, when these V-2 rockets were being used to bomb London, and they're being launched by the Germans across the ocean, and that's the kind of general time frame that you need. And there's more details, and it helps obviously to understand World War II, have a good idea of how World War II progressed, to know what the Potsdam Conference was and where these locations are. Parts of it takes place in England, part of it takes place in France, and there are things going on that you need to know. So I think the book that helped me the most to get the gist of what the story was, the settings, the context was, let me get the title right, it is The Gravity's Rainbow Handbook, a key to the Thomas Pynchon novel by Robert Crayola. And this is a very short book, but it has a character guide. It walks you through every character. So that was one of the frustrating things for me, was like a character would be named and they wouldn't be described very well. They wouldn't be, you wouldn't know who they were. There was just so many characters. Well, this book has a character guide, so that helped me enormously. It also has chapter summaries. Every section, they're unnamed chapters, but there's page numbers. Oh, it's raining. Hopefully the noise of the rain isn't too loud on this video, but I'm going to keep going anyways. So yeah, this book has chapter summaries, every chapter. It has biography of Pynchon, a very short biography. We don't know a lot about Pynchon, but it has, I think, the character summaries. That was enormously helpful to me. Every time I started a new chapter, I would just, when a character came up, I would just say like, who is this character? If I don't know, I just look in the book, boom, there it is. So that helped a lot. And then also the chapter summaries. It also talks a little about, I mentioned the occult a few times, and there are references to the Tree of Life and Hermetic Kabbalah and the Tarot in Gravity's Rainbow that I think most people are not familiar with these things, and having that was very helpful. So yeah, that's the book I'm going to recommend the most. There are other commentaries, literary criticism. You can go much deeper. This is a very, I don't want to say shallow book, but it's a very beginner's book. It's for the beginner, and if you're watching this video, I'm guessing you're a beginner, so I would say start there. Then, if you want more, the book that I recommend the most is, let me get the title on this right as well, it is A Gravity's Rainbow Companion, sources and context for Pynchon's novel. And second edition, that's the one you want. It has a lot more references. So this is the detailed annotations. For example, Pynchon, for whatever reason, makes a lot of references to, I'm blanking on, I think it's Garfield, James Garfield? No, I don't know if that's right. There's an actor that he references a lot, his movies. And it's just, Pynchon picking something to riff on and, as a motif that he can run through the book with. Well, if you want every reference to that actor and his movies, that's the book that'll help you do that. So these are, just, little details that add texture to the book, and I enjoyed it. I read through all those annotations. I don't obviously remember every single one, but some of them were very enlightening and opened up new corridors, things to research and look into more. Now, I said research. What kind of a book do you need to research? Why would you have to research a book? I just want to enjoy a novel. Well, this is that point I was making earlier about this is the type of book that you can go back to many times. And I've read the book 3 times, I believe, at this point. I may read it again this year because I've been thinking about it. And it's something that I've enjoyed more each time. And I think that's a rare thing for a book, to become more enjoyable every time you read it. That's why I love this book. That's why I love Ulysses. But to make that possible, the first time you read it, you're probably going to struggle. You're probably going to be a little frustrated. So check out these 2 books I recommended, the Robert Crayola book and the Stephen Weisenberger book. Those will help you a lot. Also, I want to mention the audiobook, which for years was not available, but I think it was recently, in the last few years, re-released. I listened to that, I want to say that after the second or first reading, I listened to that, and it's a very long audiobook, obviously, because this is a 700-something page book, but listening to that was very helpful. And similarly, I read a chapter synopsis before I listened to each chapter, and I think that helped a lot. But just having that to kind of absorb the poetry of Pynchon's prose. He is a very beautiful writer. He's a very funny writer. He's a very sad writer. He's basically, this book has every kind of emotion, every kind of human experience, and that's what I love about it. There's just so much variety, and he does really have a good sense of humor, though. Same with Joyce, and I think that's more than anything what I get from Pynchon and Joyce is their what's the word that I'm saying? Their attitude toward life. And no matter how ugly it can get, no matter how vicious people can be, no matter how sad, and this is in the end of World War II, when people were struggling just to find food, to reestablish their home. They were moving back, crossing borders. So much was going on, and people were just trying to find a normal way of life, a normal existence. And somehow, out of that, Pynchon is able to show that there is still beauty in the world, there is still happiness, there is still joy. This is not a book that, this is definitely an R-rated book. There's lots of sex and violence and all kinds of things that you will be just kind of overwhelmed by all that Pynchon exposes you to. And this is reality, though. This is what people were experiencing, and even today are experiencing to various degrees. So yeah, I hope you check this book out. It is an amazing experience that I could read this book forever, and I will probably read it at least several more times in my life, I hope, because it's such a wonderful experience. I hope you'll check it out. It's worth all the pain and all the struggle that you're going to experience. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to let me know, and please subscribe to my other videos. I've done a lot of book reviews, and I love talking about books. I don't claim to be the clearest explainer of books, but I will probably do more about other difficult books in the future. So please subscribe and let me know what you think. Thank you very much and have a great day.